Hey there, and welcome to the Body+Soul podcast, Extra Healthy-ish, the big sister podcast to Healthy-ish. I am your host, Felicity Harley. Now, here at Healthy-ish, we know health, fitness and wellness is important to you, but we also know you like to have fun. So we've designed this week's eps with a special festive season flavour. Yes, we're helping you survive Christmas with your health intact. This podcast episode is all about dealing with the pressures of our relationships around this time of year and how to actually enjoy the celebration with family and friends. So to help you deal with those awkward, hurtful, inappropriate encounters you might have with family and friends, I've asked psychotherapist and couples counsellor Lissy Abrahams to come on today and help you through it. Lissy, well, welcome back to Extra Healthy-ish. Now, tell me, how are you staying extra healthy-ish, particularly in the festive season?
Well, I have made a plan, and my big plan is to spend more time in nature. I've just spent so much time sitting on my butt in the last few months because I've been writing a book, and I absolutely need to get into the water at the beach and to walk along the beach. That's where my heart will sing the most. So that's a big plan of mine. And the other thing I'm doing is I've booked a health retreat for myself for 5 days. And I am so excited. And I did it this year, and I've decided I'm going to do it every year, just 5 days by myself. Everybody else will be absolutely fine. See you later.
Oh, look, I'm a big advocate of time to yourself. I think the healing power of nature and then time to yourself are two of the most important things you can do for your mental well-being, right?
Absolutely. I am beyond excited.
Oh, I love that. Where are you going?
I'm going to the Golden Door. It's now called Alicia.
That's in New South Wales, in Port in the Hunter Valley. Yes. Oh, yeah, how lovely.
It's really nice there. Yeah, it's lovely.
We'll have a lovely time. But first we have to get through Christmas, and that's what we're talking about, managing family relationships. So, yes, I want to talk about navigating these relationships during this stressful time, but also it can be lots of fun. Why does it become so tricky at this time of year especially?
Well, if we think about all the ads on TV, we've got families sitting around, and they're also lovely, and they're sitting around these gorgeously prepared tables, and even the dog's cute as a button, and there's no tension on the ads. And we all want some of this Christmas fantasy. And there is a problem here because there's so much pressure for us all to enjoy it, yet our family dynamics are not always enjoyable. And these family dynamics, they were created in childhood, and they often play out with the same family members at Christmas. So even though we're in our adult bodies, we all look like we're adults. Inside, when we get back into those family dynamics, which last through life, we can feel like we felt all those years ago. We get really upset or ashamed when they play out. And typically we're going to react to that. So I'll just give you an example. I'm not making any reference to my own life, maybe.
Yes, maybe we should preface this conversation with that. Me neither. None of these questions come from my personal life.
Absolutely. And we all have to self-reflect and look at these things. So for me, one of the things that I find is I'm the younger sibling of three. I've got two older brothers, and the youngest can often get dismissed and not taken seriously. So as an adult, I still don't like it if I feel like one of my siblings is being dismissive, and that can really hit a raw nerve. So our history on these Christmas days or these festive periods, it can come alive in the present, and we can react to it by fighting them or withdrawing or getting a bit sulky. And so that's what happens at these times, and it gets tricky. Another thing that often happens at this time of year is that all the old stories of childhood get hashed out.
Oh, don't they ever?
Get dragged out of the treasure chest of crap that you don't want. And I've got one which is really embarrassing, but I would love to share it with you because we all have these sorts of things that can come out. I dread this, but I was the youngest, as I said, and when I was about 2 and it was time for my bed, the whole family conspired. I've got a really lovely family, but they all conspired at that time to trick me into going to bed earliest because I had the earliest bedtime. So the word was trick, but they would spell it out T-R-I-C-K, and they'd say, Lissy, T-R-I-C-K. And I went off to bed thinking that's what it meant to go to bed. And when I learned how to spell, I was furious, and I felt really manipulated and duped by the family. So when this comes out, I've got a lot to say about it.
Does it still come out now?
It comes out. And I just feel this yuck of the duping. And that's a family dynamic that's been there. And it's not like I can't get over it, but I just feel it again. We can all feel the pull of the family dynamic.
So is it just a matter of thinking, okay, I'm about to meet my family. What triggers me? Is it about knowing, being self-aware of your own triggers from
Absolutely.
the past and going in and almost coming up with armor on?
Yeah, or just to know that there are certain things that push our buttons, because we've been with everybody before. We know what they are. And so things like old stories, just to find that part of me that can have a laugh and not take it seriously. When we know our triggers, it is a game changer, because we all have these raw nerves. All of us have them, and they're hit somewhere. But we can, when we understand them, we can just stop ourselves from automatically going into fight or flight. And we don't want to be in survival mode because everyone's having a laugh, and we don't want to be the poopers of the party. So I would say that's one of the best things we can do.
Yeah, and I suppose then you can, know what to say in that situation. If that's triggered, you can go, well, that doesn't make me feel so great. Can you please not joke about that? Or, you can have a comeback.
Or even, here we are again, that old chestnut. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, and just find a way to laugh at it, because even though it's there, it doesn't mean they're meaning to do it to hurt. It's just, we know it just tweaks something inside of us.
What about festive tension, both in our personal partnerships, whether we're married or not, with our friends, and then to wider family members? How can we diffuse this in the lead up? Like, you bring the salad. No, I want to bring the turkey. No, I want to do this. So how do we deal with this?
I think you mentioned it before, is to know your triggers, because one of the things is if we're being told what to do and ordered around, that could be a trigger in itself. And so to remember that this isn't actually personal. And so wherever I'm getting pushed and triggered, that's actually about me. So the more we can understand about this, it's preventative of escalating it. I think also one of the things we need to remember is that we can control ourselves in terms of breathing exercises and doing mindfulness. And there's so much online about this, but it is one of the best ways I know to de-stress and calm our nervous system at this time. I think also we need to have a meta position where we remember that we're not perfect. And so if we've been out of line, we've got to remember we can do things too. If we've been out of line or disrespectful with our family or members or partner, that we just need to take personal responsibility and apologise if we've been a bit rude or blaming or shaming, and that will often diffuse the tension.
Yeah, great tip, because often it's not all about us. It could be about what we're doing to someone else. You're right.
Exactly. Now, unless we want to be perfect.
Yeah. Now, in a recent HCF survey, which is really interesting, they surveyed 2,500 people, and one of the major causes of stress was keeping the in-laws happy with gifts and food. How can we manage our expectations around this and not let the in-laws stress us out?
Yeah, it is really interesting, this one, because men responded to this stress more than women. This was more on the men's side about the in-laws. So I wonder what that gender difference is really about. But it interests me, this question, because I think it really stems from someone not having a strong sense of themselves, and they're fearing that the in-laws are going to be judgmental or negative about them. And so if we're trying to ward that off, we might be over worrying or focusing on them and how to fearing we need to deal with this criticism, but it might not be real criticism. It might be imagined. So we create a lot of stories. So we need to be very careful that we're not actually pandering to this fear and using them as kind of part of our drama of our low self-esteem and low sense of self. So we know Christmas is a story of expectations. We've talked about that already. So we just, with our in-laws, take the focus off them, or their food, or their presents and likes and dislikes. It's not really about them. It's about the collective. And just question our own stories. They're not right or wrong, but they're just ours. And we can alter anything we want to do, turn up the volume on the things we really want. And if people have, whoever they are, any problems with it, just explain to them why you've done it.
We'll be back after this short break with more from Lissy. What about when we're at the Christmas table? There are always awkward family conversations. It could be politics, it could be anti-vax, vaccinations. How do we navigate this without an all-out brawl, do I say?
Yeah, it's a great question, Felicity, because we know these are such polarising topics. I think what I would do with that personally is I would grab a glass and ding, ding, ding it, and I'd say, hey, everyone, We know we're all COVID experts and chief health officers and premiers of our state now. We've spent so much time talking about the pandemic. Let's have a day off work and make our Christmas free of our expert opinions. I think I'd want to make a joke, and then I'd lead everyone to cheers it, because by doing that, I've created an implicit contract that we can then jokingly pull people up on later if it starts to feel tense.
Oh,
so
like
it just sets the scene in a different way.
Because no doubt a lot of conversations will revolve around pandemic, politics and vaccinations.
Absolutely. And we're going to really piss each other off if we go down that route for too long.
What about dealing with inappropriate, uncomfortable, awkward questions from family members? I mean, you know, if you're with someone you aren't married, or if you're actually non-binary, or when are you going to have kids? You know, we all get some awkward conversation, whether it's from a random uncle or, you know, your mum or whoever it is. How should we respond?
Yeah, I love this, because the younger generation, there's often a family member like that. Let's just say we all know them, right? No family is immune. But younger generations often call this family member the racist uncle. And this is a catch-all phrase for that member who just doesn't understand how the world's changed. And they feel at liberty to give advice. They stick their nose in and ask personal questions. They comment on your clothing and what they feel about it. They comment on body shape and size, piercings and tattoos. There's casual misogyny or racism. If you're vegan, they'll tell you need a good steak.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
Yeah. They're global warming rejectors. They're judgmental. And, you know, they comment on everything. My daughter recently had one where she went out with an elderly relative, and my daughter's got very long, bright emerald green hair at the moment. And this elderly relative said to her, "I hope your boyfriend's colourblind." So not only was there judgment about her hair not being nice, according to them, but there was also an assumption about her sexuality. And the younger generation do not want this. They don't like, we probably never liked them either, but they certainly don't. And I would say that, you know, with someone like that, you can try and test it out with them to see if you can explain your view to them at all, and see if you can teach them something, because they don't know about non-binary, they don't know about it, or they don't understand piercings and tattoos. So I'd see if there's room to educate, and if not, and there's pushback, I'd just leave them. I'd just say, thanks, we'll just agree to disagree and shut it down. Yeah,
it's not really worth wasting your time. Go and talk to someone who provides far more interesting and enlightening and intriguing conversation. That's my tip.
Absolutely. Or even go find the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, on that note, how can we have better conversations? I mean, sometimes we get thrown into a Christmas party with people who might be hard to talk to, or someone who you have got conflict with. What are your top tips for having conversations that don't have that conflict, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, I think if we can all remember that conflict's actually not necessary. All it says is that I can't tolerate your version. I can't tolerate the reality of you because it's not like me and you don't think like me. So if we can be open to that and be curious about how other people operate, that's actually going to stop us going into fight or flight mode and having conflict. We don't have to convince them to be different. We can still hold on to our own version. So we can pull back a conversation. We can even say, let's finish this conversation next year, as we all deserve to have some fun today, or we can just avoid it and keep it in the safe zone. We don't want Christmas to be memorable because we became upset.
Yeah.
That'll be the story next year.
Absolutely.
Oh, do you remember when Lissy became upset, or Felicity started crying, or screamed? We don't need this. So we can walk away. We don't have to engage.
Do you know what? I randomly read this book a couple of years ago. I just have to share this tip. It was called How to Have Better Conversations, or it was something along those lines. I can't actually remember the actual title. And it was a genius book. And I went into Christmas that year with my in-laws trying to take out some tips about how you can actually turn conversations into really enlightening experiences if you really focus on what the other person is saying. The next question is in the last person's answers. I suppose I loved it because I'm a journalist and I love asking people. But it actually really changed my Christmas, because I came in with a different approach. More so, okay, I want to learn things about people, because I want to enjoy this time. I want to make this time better than perhaps it was the last year. So what am I going to do about it? I've got to take personal responsibility. And it actually really changed my whole Christmas. And I found out these fascinating things about people, about my husband's family members that I didn't even know. So you can actually, turn things around in that way.
Well, that's going to be my top tip.
Oh, okay. Top tips.
Thank you. No, thank you for listening. You have just created the top tip that is actually about being curious. And I think it's terrific. And then you really get to know them, not how they're judging you, but actually who they are as individuals. And I think it's a fantastic thing to do.
And often there's some interesting stories in their past that that you might not know, or you've never learnt, or you've never even bothered asking about.
And I think what's really important about what you're saying, we can do that with the young and old. And in that way, we don't become the racist uncle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We don't become judgmental. We can stand in a position that wants to know them, and we can be doing it differently. So we don't become the old one who doesn't move with the times.
Yeah,
so
or the young woke one who doesn't really understand where they're coming from either. I think that's also the flip side of that, isn't it? Often when we're younger and, perhaps we do lean left or are more woke in that way, we don't appreciate their point of view. Not that we have to agree with it, but...
And maybe that's not quite fully woke.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not quite woke enough. It's still a bit judgy woke.
Now, just quickly, have you got any more tips for building positive relationships and really enjoying this season with our family and friends?
Yeah, I think just to really keep remembering why we're here, that no family is perfect and we should just accept our differences. I think we need to be very careful with alcohol, because with alcohol, it can fuel our sensitivity to the family dynamics and we can become quite disinhibited and loose-lipped. This is when a drink is no longer a drink, but potentially a Molotov cocktail. So be very careful, everybody, with alcohol. I'd say mix with the ages, up and down in the generations. They're fabulous. And we can just also really hang out with our favourite people there.
Yeah.
And
yes.
really use this as an opportunity to bond, because we don't know what's coming next. So let's hang out and have a good time.
Yeah, great tip. And we don't know whether it's going to be another 2 years if we can cross the border somewhere and see them.
Exactly. And I really appreciate this moment.
Yeah. Lissy, have a wonderful... Oh, what are you doing on Christmas?
Playing cards.
Oh, playing cards, of course.
Playing cards.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, ordering some food in.
I like that. Well, have a wonderful Christmas period and thanks for coming on Extra Healthy-ish.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Well, there we go. I challenge you to have more curious and interesting conversations this Christmas. If you want more info about HCF's Summer Health Report, I will leave links to that in the episode notes. If you want more from us, remember, Extra Healthy-ish, we publish a new episode for your wonderfully healthy ears every morning, Monday to Thursday. For more, head to bodyandsoul.com.au, or you can join the conversation via Body and Soul on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks again for tuning in, and if you have a moment, we'd be so grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe to this podcast. And until tomorrow, well, have a wonderful Christmas.